Well, I started it, so I'm kind of hosed there anyway.
Yeah.
I'll look up stuff up.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello. Once again, this is Tom.
And this is Mark.
And we're here with the... Oh, God. What are we calling this? Jeez, every time.
One day we'll come up with a
channel
name.
name is just going to stick. If we end up with enough subscribers and enough people, we get to choose the channel name properly. And the one we currently have will stick, including the fact that I'm using invisible punctuation in the actual title, and nobody knows what that means.
Yeah, it seems to be driving one of our friends slightly mad.
Yeah, that might be the reason I'm doing it. That might be the reason.
That's always a good idea. That's always a great idea. Anyway,
so we're here in a house today. And well, I'm not going to say whose house it is. It's somebody's house.
It's somebody's house. We broke in here.
And how to get arrested. We didn't break it in. We didn't need to. I stole the keys off the person. We was really easy to get in.
Yeah,
we didn't break a damn thing. Except the guy's legs.
Yeah, that thing.
So thank you very much we've already got a couple of questions up on our website. You can find that at bit.ly/ and then it's the TYAUP. No, the TYUA. It's something.
Yet as a name podcast hyphen questions. TYAUP hyphen question. This one. You're going to have to find that now. Ha.
Well, it's okay. It's bit.ly/ then capital letters TYAUP hyphen questions.
There we go.
Questions is all small, all lowercase. Thank you.
Excellent. So, are we going to lead on from the question I left out last time?
That's the current name of it, so we might get a name by the end of the day. But we're certainly not going ramblings anywhere, and no more Elvis songs. No more Elvis songs. That's a request from Elvis.
From Elvis himself.
I should get a burger and go onto the toilet.
No dying on the podcast, please. It sets a really bad precedent.
Do you reckon that's what he was doing, a podcast?
Back in the day?
Casting his pod!
Anyway. So, there was a question we left out from the previous one.
Okay, yeah, the previous one was we were at Freenode Live and we did a live cast at Freenode Live, which was kind of lots of fun. We had Arietta with us and we also had Deb Nicholson was a keynote speaker, and a few other people. I've listened to it and thankfully the sound wasn't too bad. The speaking at the end, where there were a couple of people speaking very close to us, didn't pick up that much. The microphone was able to not pick them up too much and it picked us up a little better.
That's useful then. That's good. I was worried about that.
You could still hear them though, so
people next to us.
If you want to pick out their conversation, you can do. If you want to know who they are, well, I'm not entirely sure I'm going to tell you unless you contact me privately, and then I'm still not going to tell you.
Yeah, because even I don't remember.
I do remember, but I'm not going to tell you.
Okay. So the question we didn't do from the last one is what's it like to organise a conference?
Oh,
and this is why I left it off, because this is a big question for you,
right?
Considering that you have an arm and a leg.
Speaking was frightening. Organising a conference is terrifying, and it happens over a much longer period of time. It starts off with a great deal of fun. You feel in a great deal of initial levels of power and I can do these things. I've got this power. I can organise this conference. You quickly find out that you actually have to organise all sorts of things between speakers, guests, attendees, talk lengths, promotion of the conference, making sure everybody's happy. And then you get panic stations. You'll end up with being a few weeks before with either too many speakers or too few speakers, too many talks or too few talks, too many people or too few people. You never end up with too much money. You can always spend the money.
Yeah.
You really have to then also balance between people who don't like too much sort of presence from sponsors and the fact that, there's got to be a reason the sponsors do this. Some sponsors do because they're generally nice people. There's a lot of you out there.
Yeah.
I could name them on this podcast, but I'm not going to. There are a lot of really great sponsors who don't want anything more than to actually put something back into the community they want to be belonging in. But really, a lot of other sponsors are doing it because they're satisfying certain levels of things they need as a sponsor, whether that's actually to be seen in the community, whether or not they are actually doing a job search, whether or not they want more contributors to their project, whether they just want a greater presence and awareness, or whether or not it's the fact of they feel that if they can keep this community going and grow their community, they'll end up with a better class of person working at their company.
Yeah.
All of those are actually very valid reasons why sponsors should come on board. But you have to balance that against people who don't want an overbearing presence of sponsors.
Yeah.
And I find that a kind of a weird thing, because an overbearing presence of sponsors, generally the sponsors turn up and generally the sponsors bring stuff. A number of times I've been at an event where the sponsors bought me food and drinks for no other reasons than they're there.
Yeah.
Seriously, you get MDs who come along and they just get so into enjoying being at the event, they buy rounds of drinks for people. And then somebody goes, oh, I don't like it when the sponsors come to an event. Yeah, right, I really hate it when they come along, give me money and then buy me drinks.
Yeah.
It's awful. Awful.
It's kind of hard to turn down a free beer.
So it goes into a lot of minutiae of detail and
Yeah.
a lot of timing of things. You can end up with too much sponsorship, too much promotion, too little sponsorship, too little promotion. You can end up saying things too much or too little. You have to keep on reminding people, because some people are really forgetful. You remind them by email, they sign up and they join in. Or you remind them by email, and then 3 months later they go, why didn't you tell us that the conference is in a week? Because last year when I told you 3 times, you got upset at it. So it's all a balancing game of between the number of voices in dissent with the number of voices who in assent in favour of. And generally what you find is these sort of, it's a bell curve where the people in the middle are generally happy with you annoying them a little bit because they're getting this thing and they want to be at this thing. And then start tailing towards the people who don't like to be annoyed.
Yeah.
And that quickly goes towards the extreme of, you told me once, that's all I needed.
Yeah.
You get the other end where
only need telling once as well.
If they're not told every day, they just don't do it.
No.
Because it's that frequency thing, it might be new to them.
Yeah.
Then you have concerns about whether or not you're actually having a breadth of variety at your event.
Yeah.
And whether that event is actually representing your community well. And this is not even going into the level of needing to have things such as like a code of conduct and able to enforce that code of conduct, able to actually have a code of conduct where people feel that they can actually come to you and say, I want to talk about this in terms of the code of conduct.
Yeah.
Because saying you've got a safe conference is not the same as having a safe conference.
Yeah. I mean, code of conduct as well has been a very not pretentious, complicated subject lot recently, because some people don't get why you need them. Some people won't attend without one there, and other people don't see the point.
Well, I'm going to go straight on record straight away as saying I don't want to be part of any event that doesn't have a code of conduct at the moment, and I'll say this for a very specific reason. I realise that a lot of people know that it's about not being an asshat. It's about not being a complete loon and being aggressive, and it's about being a good person. And a lot of people get that, and a lot of people are good people. And in fact, at a lot of conferences I go to, I would say the vast majority of the people there are good people. However, we're talking about a protected space here.
Yeah.
We're talking about the fact that people coming new to that space should know that they can be instantly protected. And we do not have societies yet that can offer those things out of the box.
Yeah.
We don't have societies where we can just say everybody's safe, which is why we have laws. So we have laws and we have modes of behaviour inside society. Yeah. And when you organise a conference, and here's the whole thing, is what we're actually talking about here is you end up with community events, which are like families. Families don't have written laws. So everybody goes, well, in my family, I don't need my written law.
No.
But this is not a family event. This is a social event that has a structure. It has a person running that event. It has people presenting, and they have a position and place, and therefore there's authority in this stratification. As soon as you get stratification, you get power principles, and you get ways of behaviour. You get people who've been in the community for a long time who believe that they have a certain position in that community. They actually are able to exert that position in that community, and that can be problematical.
Yeah.
So at which point we need to codify things. And what we are doing here is codifying modes of behaviour that are acceptable and unacceptable, not just so everybody's clear, so everybody's told how to be a good person, but to say, we will not have anything but these things.
Yeah.
If we were in a utopian society, we would not have need for these things, and I would love to get rid of code of conducts everywhere.
It would be.
In the same way I'd love to get rid of all laws, but that's a completely different argument.
There's a slightly different question.
The only way to reduce crime is to reduce the number of laws we have. Who can honestly say they haven't burned down a public building? I know I have. I think that covers that code of conduct.
that covers that one, but yeah.
We need to have a code of conduct because we don't actually have safe societies. Not only that, we have historical baggage we have a lot of historical baggage to do with gender. We have a lot of historical baggage to do with race and ethnicity and different countries. We have a lot of historical baggage to do with how people see meritocracies. And we have a lot of baggage inside communities of how people exert power in their position. And when you have those things, you actually have to then have some way of protecting people.
Yeah.
So if we get rid of all those other things, then I'm fine with getting rid of the code of conduct.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get rid of all those other things. So let's just have a code of conduct and all agree that we're going to codify a mode of behaviour.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's something we can agree to. Yeah. Now, I do know that there's some people who dislike this because they say, well, I've seen a code of conduct used badly. So have I. But I've also seen lots of events, and I also know lots of people who have been abused. Yeah. So having a code of conduct protects those people, and I don't care. It actually upsets more people than it saves. It's not about saving. It's more about the number of people it saves. If it saves one person, that's enough. Yeah. That's why we have laws, and that's why we have rules and regulations in a broader society, and that's why we need a code and a mode of operating when we actually come together as different people with different morals. We all have different morals, different laws, different ways of understanding things, and different beliefs about our position in a society. So we have to have some way that says, no, there's a level bar, here's that level bar, so that you know what that is, so you don't need to be confused.
Here is the line. Don't cross it.
Yeah,
excellent.
So there's nothing wrong with having that thing.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that a code of conduct is not there to protect me. It is there to tell me what's a bad idea to do.
Yes.
You know, it's not going to. Unfortunately, it's not going to stop, say, myself being a complete ass. But it does say that if I am a complete ass, I will probably get kicked out of the conference. You know, it's a don't do this thing because it's bad.
And it doesn't stop people being people. I mean, I've been at plenty of conferences where there's been a code of conduct that says that you have to behave well to people. Yet there's been occasions when a group of people, really old friends, have got together, and it's got really, really language level. It's like when you're playing that stupid card game, where you're meant to be offensive. The actual thing is that the actual rule system there is set up by the people who are in part of that group. If there was somebody new to that group who didn't know those rules, you'd explain those rules to them, or you'd modify your behaviour. That's all a code of conduct does. And when people say, "Oh, but we all know how to do that," no, we really don't. We don't all know how to do that.
If we knew how to do it, we wouldn't need the code of conduct in the first place.
Indeed. As I say, there's a lot of problems. But this goes on to a much broader question about how we see things in society and how things have changed. Yeah. I mean, I think it's an extraordinarily weird and exciting time in society broadly as a whole. The things that are coming out at the moment, all I can say is, at last. I'm sorry, I'm saying at last, thank God this is all coming out. Thank God these people are being taken down. They need to be taken down. The actual real crime here is it's been so long for some people. They've had decades of abuse. Yeah. And now they've got
Stockholm syndrome.
I'm kind of reminded of the writer of the White Psych Jean Rice, who was she was not allowed to have an award because of the language in her book, and so they gave her an award when she was in her 60s, when her book was on a banned list,
right?
Because it was censored. And in the 1960s, they stopped the censorship of art in the UK,
right,
of literature. And so they gave her this award because her book was released. And she said too little too late, she refused the reward. Because she was absolutely right. She'd been pretty much abused for decades.
Yeah.
What's the point of a smeggy little award now that says, we finally allow your book to be sold? No, too little too late. And there's a lot of that is for the people who've been abused and it's been hidden. It's too little too late. Yeah. And if we'd actually had a method by which we could actually stop people behaving that way, a code of conduct.
Yeah, funny that.
If there was a way that they actually knew that if that thing happened, they could instantly go to somebody and it was acted on straight away, maybe we wouldn't have had this.
Yeah.
It's because we haven't actually had these people taken down for generations that we've had the behaviour ingrained, and people say, "Oh, why is it all suddenly changed?" It hasn't all suddenly changed. It's been happening like
people have finally got loud enough to get against.
People have got loud enough, and thank God.
Yeah.
You have those as conference organisers as well. Slight sideways movement. That's actually in my mind when I organise conferences. I was part of a movement to put a code of conduct in many years ago into an organisation. And so I wrote with somebody else the first code of conduct for the first conference of that type. And since then, there's not been a single conference that I've organised that hasn't had a code of conduct.
Yeah.
And I've not been part of any group or membership, including the ones that we're part of. One of the first things we did was write a code of conduct for a membership organisation.
Yeah.
Because we said there had to be a certain level of rules. Now, okay, we have a code of conduct and rules in this organisation. And the rules are basically, rule 1, obey the code of conduct. Rule 2, don't do anything so damn stupid as to mean we need more rules.
Yeah, that's...
but we have a code of conduct because we allow younger people to come into that, and we allow people who we say exposed in our society to come to it.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people who don't occupy the same power positions, and you need to think about that in a conference. And that comes into the type of speakers you choose that you want on. Because I'm constantly wanting new speakers.
Yeah.
And I think new speakers should be given a bigger platform sometimes than established speakers. I mean, this is where I like them to do lightning talks, because then they're in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But it's a whole case of you need to get more speakers and more blood into your thing at conference. So that's a concern, is making sure you get new people at your event. It's why often the question is, anybody new to the event? I've never yet organised a conference where it's not been at least 30 to 40 people.
Yeah.
I'd say mostly it's about 10% to 15% completely new people to the event, and that's great.
Oh yeah. That's it's always good to run into people at conferences where it's like they've never heard about the thing that we're on about. I mean, this is in certain conferences where they've got a theme or something to them. If you've never heard about it before, but you've turned up, brilliant, great. Here, listen to all this cool stuff. I mean, it's also the case with. I mean, it gets a bit weirder with conferences where they're a bit more broad. Ones where it's there's no particular one thing we're all cool with or cool about, but it's cool with. That's the wrong word. All interested. Well,
interested in
interest groups, but they're such a broad group that it's kind of like, well, hi, there's people over there that do this and over there that do that, and
so
guys over there
was a good
doing that.
for that, because it was multidisciplinary.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that know that range from exceedingly technically gifted to they know how to do an email.
Oh, and I mentioned it last time, but flossuk.org and the Pearl Conference in Glasgow, both are on next year, both are accepting talks of a technical nature. But, Floss UK is a little broader than just a technical nature. Floss UK is all about open systems, so it can be open data and it can be open digital rights and open rights, and it's open to that broader technical open sharing group. And that's the kind of conference where you end up with people with vastly different expectations, and that's possibly one of the problems.
Yeah.
As a conference organiser, you end up with all of that on your plate, and then you end up on the day with every tiny thing is your fault.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know what that tiny thing is that just went unravelled and spun up into the distance going...
everything that goes wrong is your fault. Everything
that
went right is someone else's success.
Indeed, it's like
you get
somebody comes up and goes, "Hey there, I did that thing that you told me to do it exactly the way that you told me to do it, and everybody liked it. Aren't I a good person?" Well, yes, thanks for doing it, but you basically just were an extension of my will. If I could remote control you by my mind, I would do it. That's possibly what I do need as a conference organiser, a group of minions that I can just extend and control by my mind. Actually, I do have those. They're called volunteers, and I love them.
Yeah.
That's another thing you have to organise, is you have to organise volunteers, and there's so many are needed on the day, and they're not needed beforehand. Running up can actually be done by a couple of people. To nearly any size of conference, it's a few people, but on the day, the setting up of an event, the actual running the moment by moment of an event, that takes lots of people.
Yeah, and
any room you've got should really have 2 volunteers for a room.
It's something like depending on the size of the conference, it's like one volunteer for 15 people. It's probably about that, because
that would be a good number.
I mean, that sounds very much like a school, but then again, you've got so many different things to go on. You've got people to organise food, people to organise the rooms themselves, organising the breaks, everything like that, and making sure people know where to go and what to do. And
just answering questions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I was doing a hit or a wish list of things I'd do in a conference, I started to write one of these, and I got to about 9 pages.
Whoa.
Because I was explaining some of the reasons why you have some of the things as well. There's a much longer one that was actually done by a guy called Barbie. He actually did a conference book. It's an open source book, so you can actually contribute to it. He's actually asked me to contribute to the next version of it.
So anyone who wants to contribute, it'll be in the description.
Yes, we'll try to put a link to Barbie's book, because he's got it on Git and people can contribute. You can grab a copy off the internet and see how to run a conference, because he organised a very big conference in Birmingham that had about 400 people at it.
Wow,
he had a good lot of things to say about it, and so it's a good thing to have.
Including "never again," I think was one of his words.
So yes, if I say it's terrifying but very drawn out terrifying, because as you approach the day, it gets more and more terrifying, and even if you work at doing a conference that final week, if you're doing another job as well, you're not doing another job that final week.
No, there's no way.
You're not doing anything else except organising things to do with the conference.
Yeah.
Making sure that everybody's getting the things they want at the conference. And the more sponsors you have, the more that you're, I would say, hand-holding them to get them to have the best time. As much as you do the speakers, as much as you do the attendees. Because what you actually want out as the organiser is you want absolutely everybody to leave with a smile on their face, which is usually why I organise a drink at the pub afterwards.
Yeah.
Because then they have a smile on their face.
Yeah.
I just, so long, drawn out, terrifying and exhilarating on the actual day.
Yeah.
By the time things are actually, nothing can go wrong because it's way too late for anything to go wrong. Anything that goes wrong is irrelevant. You stop worrying about it. By the time it's there, unless people are dropping dead around you.
Yeah,
let's not go there. No. But I've had things like fire alarms go off, security trying to lock us out while we were actually in the event. A massively smashed window that happened outside security that year.
Whoops.
There's all sorts of things. Security coming along at 5 and saying, "You've got to leave now." Well, no, we paid them until 7. Oh, nobody told me. Well, that's not my fault. I can show you the contract, but I don't know anything about it. Again, that's really not my fault. Here's the contract that says I'm here till 7. I've paid. Yeah. So unless you want to refund all the money, we're here till 7.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm supposed to lock the doors. Well, that's fine because we've got several people in this room who can probably pick the lock. So go on. In fact, if you lock the doors, we're going to take your alarm system to pieces.
That wasn't me, honest gov.
But we could. So it kind of, you're in a more relaxed state, I would say.
At that moment in time, it's like, well, nothing I can do about it.
Your brain has left the building. You no longer care.
Yeah, you're on autopilot. So in that case, I'm going to skip one of the questions I was going to ask.
Okay.
But I'm going to skip straight to the second half of that question, which is, what's the best thing about organising a conference?
The fact that people enjoy it. It's every single one of them who thank you. And there's not yet been a conference that I haven't had somebody insist on a round of applause for me, and I get standing ovations. And in terms of my community itself, as a conference organiser, I first of all had an award made for me.
Yeah.
There was a specific award made in the community for me to have, so I was the first person to receive that award. And then when I stopped doing one event, they clubbed together and bought me a 3D printer, which is over there actually. So, this person stole my 3D printer. Whoever the house this is. Bastard!
I think it might be your wife's house.
Oh, well, I had 3D printer. What's mine is hers and what's hers is her own.
Yep.
That's an old joke. He's very tired. But I didn't do it for those reasons. But it's the fact of it. It's the thanks, and I think because of that, that's probably. I guess that's why they appreciate it so much. Is that I was so happy to do it again each year. Is because somebody would come up and go, "That was a great conference. Please, please, please do it again." And I'd be like, just in that post-conference thing of, "Oh yeah."
Shout out to Crystal, who's probably just hit her in the face now after she said she'd do for Creative Live again.
What a Crystal! Yeah. So I do it for the people. The whole reason of organising these events is having a community respond so well to them and enjoy themselves, and you actually go to it. And when things run really well, they run really well.
Yeah.
Being at events where it's actually funny, you can see people enjoying themselves. It's actually a great reward just to be stood at the side. I usually end up on a conference. I'll end up at the end of the day probably watching lightning talks, and I'll be watching the audience more than I'm watching the speakers. Just seeing the fact that they're enjoying themselves, and you think, well, that's it. I pulled that off. And it's that whole thing of, I brought all of these together, I made this thing happen, and I had lots of people help me along the way, but that's it, I cohesed it together.
And then run away screaming!
Afterwards, So, it's enormously rewarding having seen something successfully complete. And then knowing it's going to happen again, that's also rewarding.
Yeah. Which is why you ended up doing 2 more next year.
Yeah.
It is a complete glutton.
Possibly 3.
Glutton for punishment. Definitely glutton for punishment. So,
question? I think we've done the organ.
I think we've done.
You've done conferences. There we go. If you want to organise a conference, don't. No, you should. But it's a lot of work. And,
get some willing volunteers and let them do it.
Ask for help and ask people who've organised conferences before. Yeah. Because they'll be willing to actually tell you you're mad.
Yeah, definitely.
And point you in the right direction.
So,
never start too early with your call for papers and call for speakers or call for kittens.
Call for kittens. We're about to be infested by a cat. Here, come on, kitty. Kitty. Nope. Nope.
He's now being cautious. Like what? Why?
Cat.
Cat.
There's a cat. We have a cat on the table. So what should we call this?
Well, we call him Darwin.
We call this one Darwin. I think we'll call it.
We named him after the eminent scientist, but now he's named after the award.
Yeah.
And that is his fat butt.
Sitting on my phone. Don't knock the microphone
I
over,
think we
Darwin.
should call this Cat Butt.
Yep, cat butt.
Cat Butt.
Cat butt.
Cat Bud is an incredible cat bud. So we have a cat's bum. The cat's bum. Episode 3, the cat's bum.
Yeah.
So what's the next question?
I think we're running out of time. Then.
Oh, we must have a quick silly question. We've got to have a quick silly question.
Oh dear, silly question.
Don't squat on the microphone.
I don't know if we've got any small, silly questions. We came into this one unprepared, as you can quite honestly tell. Okay, what's your favourite sounding word?
Right. Oh, my favourite sounding word. Well, bum. It's good.
Bum.
Bum.
Oh, bum.
Bottom. Actually, I think the way Rowan Atkinson says Bob. It's that kind of Bob. I actually like the way that sometimes people pronounce words. So I like bang as well.
Yeah.
Onomatopoeia, great word for describing words that actually sound like the thing they're supposed to be. I think Wilfred Owen had one, which is the rapid rattle of rifles rattling, was in one of his poems. And
Okay.
like a First World War gun. He was a First World War poet.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Sometimes I think onomatopoeia is actually enforced because you could go bang, and that's not really right, is it?
Yeah,
but
no.
that's not onomatopoeia.
That's like Windows start noises. You know?
So I actually, though, there's a couple of words I really like because of their meaning as well. Again, they're poetical things. So I like portmanteau as a word, as a sound, but I don't like it when it's used badly. So I think a good portmanteau word should actually be a really good portmanteau word. So glocal is an awful portmanteau word. It sounds awful, and it's just a terrible word. So you want good portmanteau words. Yeah, and the mixed teeth. So, and there's actually, you pointed me at this, there's a language study about why words work and why sounds and words work together.
That's a while ago. Sorry,
Yeah. So Angelina and Brad Pitt, Bradgelina, and why the language works together.
Yes, because there's a particular word order and
there's a word order and a word structure. That was a fascinating article, by the way. That was brilliant.
A weird.
That's going to go in the links as well. Absolutely brilliant
If
article.
you can
should
find
read
it.
But I think any language lover, there's rarely you have one word. Mellifluous is a word I love, which is actually a word again about words. It's melodic sounding. I like fungible as well. So there's lots of words I actually like, and I like them for what they mean and how they sound.
The worst bit is, I'm not sure if he's making some of these up.
Portmanteau and bum. And this episode was the cat's bum.
How apt.
Or the cat's bottom. This has been great. Lots of fun. Thank you very much for that great question, Tom.
That's why I saved
it. I could talk a lot more about that. We might talk a bit more about the whole thing about gender, society, and how things have changed and how this is a great time to be in and also an awful time to be in. It's an awful time for all those people who've been affected, but it's a great time to be in because it's taking down some of these
a lot of the old
things
walls
that we have,
and stuff that
and it's
shouldn't
happening
be
now.
there
It's
anymore.
hitting everywhere.
It
started with the whole Weinstein, and it's now in British politics. It's now just slamming into all the politicians, and that's great. And more to it. I'd like to see more fire, mostly because of there was this tag that said "Me Too."
Oh
And,
yes,
I
that one.
never mentioned it at the time. I was going to do a blog post, but I didn't. I actually asked a few people I know, and I asked some women I know just to see whether or not they had a story. There wasn't a single woman I asked who didn't have an harassment story. Every single woman I spoke to had an harassment story. That means every single woman I'm betting has an harassment story.
Yeah.
So this is long overdue. We are long overdue.
Unfortunately, I am unsurprised about that fact.
Yeah. And as for people who go, well, men get harassed as well. I don't care about that. The whole thing is, I don't know a single woman. I've never been harassed sexually. I've never been sexually harassed. That's the whole point. So out of my study that I can do.
Yeah.
There are far fewer men who are harassed than women. So let's go for the majority argument here and stop harassment against women. We may talk about this more later, and it will be a subject that may get us some love.
Oh yeah.
I will once again be accused of
various things.
I'll go into that later. You should see the things I've been accused of. Some of them are good. I like the guy who called me a feminist in capital letters. Feminist! Thanks.
And it's good night from him.
And it's good night from me.